We're joined now by Liberal Sashaman, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on today. Unfortunately, seeing this play out again, time and again, you see this. You saw the one that happened during the few subsidy protests, the one that happened in Bielsa, and it looks as though these things count for nothing. What's going on?
I felt like crying when I was watching these reports. My condolence to the family and families of so many others, including my friend Ugochukwu Ozwa. You, Channels Television, carried that news extensively. Till date, the police are still playing hide and seek game with the suspected murder of Ugochukwu and so many others. We're happy because we're in Lagos, where you have media coverage like Channels and some other television houses who are exposing some of these heinous and avoidable crimes. But in other states, it's happening daily, hardly spoken of. And even if you listen to Oshomole earlier this year when he had an altercation with the Attorney General of the Federation, and he said, look, if I cannot find killers, as a sitting governor cannot find killers, the killers of his private secretary, he wonders what the ordinary man on the street is going through. And then also, it beats my imagination how you give a gun to a man, you cannot determine his mental capacity, his psychology. I went somewhere recently and then I saw one policeman hanging a gun on his shoulder and was smelling of alcohol. And I quickly begged the people around the gate. I said, please, if his colleague is here, find a way of collecting this gun from him before you hear of another accidental discharge, because it was typical of the police authority, like the police commissioner. I was very sad when the police commissioner talked about people should go about their normal duties, and then that the Okada rider should still remember that the traffic law is still in place. We're not talking about traffic law here. We're talking about human life. That's to tell you the value these people place on human life. And I was appalled when Dr. Dogo sat down here trying to defend the indefensible, trying to justify. And then there was a question Malkwe asked him, and he said, trying to differentiate between APC and PDP, although we're not talking about politics now, but then Nigerians know the truth. It's not for you to sit down and begin to paint a picture of what is not as if it exists. Even the first subsidy issue, I listened to his answers, and I'm also trying to blame the press for government's failure. It's appalling how Nigerians talk from both sides of the mouth. Well, that's for him, but for me, the issue here is nobody is talking about compensation for the family now. The next thing, people will benefit from this killing because committees will be set up to investigate these. Some people would be sent from Abuja, special squad to investigate. They would stay in a hotel. They will be paid extra code, out of office allowance and all of that. And at the end of the day, the report will never see the light of the day. And then the children of the deceased, the young man, will be there. And tomorrow they will drop out of school and end up being armed robbers or menace to our society, and then the circle, continues like that. We're not bothered. The government is not talking about, okay, how do we, for the families of people like this, because the government is culpable here, because you give a gun to a man who, if you see the way these police people, the way they behave, although you have some fantastic police officers, I would say, I will not sit down here and condemn all of them. If you remember also the case of Ugozi against the state in Benin, where a policeman killed a returnee from Spain that on the ground that they stopped him on the highway and he did not stop timelessly. And then what was the defense of the police? That it was accidental discharge, that this man was dragging the gun with the disease was, trying to wrestle the gun from the police officer. And then also, even in spite of the fact that the ballistic expert proved otherwise, that the gun was shot at a range, the defense of the police was that the ballistic expert was not competent enough to determine that they should have called a fellow policeman. And the courts, frowned at that argument and, condemning the Ugozi to death. That, look, you cannot, if you say the ballistic expert is not competent enough, then who should be competent enough to determine,
Just, Mr. Shoma, just a moment here. In fairness to the police, we have also seen the case. You talked about what happened during the fuel subsidy protest and how an overzealous DPO shot a protester, and we've seen that person is actually facing justice.
Because the Lagos State government had to intervene. The Lagos State government intervened in that matter. You remember when it happened, the Lagos State governor issued a press statement that, look, this will not, calming the protester, that this will not go the way of others. Because the Lagos State government intervened. The case of Ugochukwu Ozua that happened in Bagada, till date, because the Lagos State government is not in the picture of that, what has happened to date? The police will tell you, initially they said that some people were arrested. Whether those people are still in custody till now, nobody knows. And then later they said a file had been sent to the DPP's office for advice and, back and forth. And so many other. How about the one that happened in Ikorodu? There's so many others. Like I said, because we're in Lagos, where you have heavy media presence, it is always easy for the media to report these things and for people to be aware, and for some state government who are very responsive, to take it upon themselves to see how they can mitigate some of these issues. But largely, what is the value of life to the Nigerian government? Here, we find it very convenient these days to put our hope and our lives in the hands of pastors, because government had failed in all sectors. In other climes, I remember in Bradford, about 3 years back in Bradford, a policewoman on patrol was gunned down by bandits. And then there was argument whether every police on patrol should be allowed to carry guns. And the argument of the Metropolitan Police Chief then was that the firearm itself has a force behind it. And so you cannot rule out that fact, that for you to give a policeman or a man a gun, you need to train him properly, especially in the acts and psychology of firearms. But a situation where you recruit a policeman and then the very next day he's hanging AK-47 on his shoulders, and you need to see some of these policemen wrestling keys with Okada downful drivers and Okada riders. A policeman that is in charge of enforcing traffic laws, what does he need a gun for? In spite of this, I quite agree there's so much insecurity in the land caused by some of these misgovernance. But what do you need a gun for? A man that is to enforce traffic offense. We remember those days. You give even till date you have what you call traffic warding, the yellow fever police that we know. They don't carry arms. They carry baton. Does that mean that Okada riders and motorists don't respect them?
And there's no effect to such laws.
Very effective. Shouldn't we ask that?
LASMA is very effective in Lagos, not because they carry arms, but because they know what they're doing.
Shouldn't we ask that question? Does it also reflect on us as a people, the fact that our policemen have to be armed to some extent earn our respect?
No, it's not about arming our police to earn our respect. This issue of arming the police, it's a carryover of the military mentality in our politics. And so you see, the only way some of these are so-called big men, quote and unquote, announce their arrival is with gun-trotting policemen and escort vans. And so when you see them, you say, oh, is that one minister, one commissioner, or one rich man is coming? And so before now, we had policemen on the street with baton. Till date, like I just told you.
Will you advise us to go back to those days when all our policemen had batons?
What is happening now, for you to give a man a gun, you need to evaluate his psychology. Secret court in our campuses is rampant because when you have guns in the hand of people that are not properly trained in the acts of carrying arms, what do you have? Any little argument, demand, he wants to. You see some of these things in the movie, he wants to exhibit it. And so the same thing, you give a policeman a uniform. The uniform is enough. He gives him the mentality of somebody who is above the law. And in some cases, they will tell you, I will kill you, and nothing will happen. And then we've seen our judicial process, the slow nature of our judicial process also is affecting some of these things, because at the end of the day, some of these prosecutions are hurriedly forgotten. And we've left our hands in the our lives in the hands of pastors and imams. And then they say it's convenient for somebody to say, leave it for God.
Why can't this be faster? Administration of justice.
Recently, if you remember, the review of our legal system, the committees by some various states, heralded by the Lagos state government, came up with a report that there's need to fast track these processes and front load, what we call front loading of processes. You don't need to take anybody by surprise. If you have a case in court, just put in all the papers at once, and then the other party would front load his, and then you sit down for pre-trial and look at, you know, the areas you are contesting and the areas you are agreeing on. But in some cases, you find out that you have lawyers who are truly not ready to even prosecute matters. You have situations where investigations are not properly conducted, because what happens in our crimes here is you arrest before investigation. But over there in Western world, you see the police, they can take them a long time to investigate. And once you are nabbed, the very next minute you are going to court because they've concluded investigation, then they have a watertight case. But here, that's why Ibori could escape justice here. And when he got there, the moment he was confronted with evidence, he had no other option but to say, look, I agree.